I never expected a millionaire to adopt me. Then my life-threatening illness disappeared. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It was overcast, the clouds heavy like my heart. I sat on the worn-out couch, staring at the walls that echoed failure. Mom was gone. Dad was out somewhere with his demons. And there I was, a 16-year-old with a ticking time bomb inside me threatening to take it all away. I had learned to breathe through the pain. But on that day, it punched me hard. I felt the world tilt. The tremors in my hands illustrated my mounting fear. My doctor's face was etched in my mind, a grim reaper in a white coat. And then everything changed. An unexpected knock at the door. I opened it to a brisk wind carrying whispers of mystery. There stood a man tall, regal, an enigma wrapped in an expensive suit. His eyes were like ice, piercing but filled with a strange warmth. This was Theo Kensington, a name known in wealthy circles. But to me, he was just a stranger. "May I come in?" he asked, voice calm but gravelly, like it had weathered storms. The invitation slipped from my lips before I could think. I wanted to know why he was here, yet my heart raced with unexplainable fear. He sat down, the cushion barely dipping. His arrival felt like a cosmic shift. The walls felt charged with energy. "That I hear you need a family," he said bluntly, as if spoken on a dare. My heart leaped. Could he be serious? The thought hung in the air, thick and almost suffocating. The oddest connection formed. We spoke for hours, sharing laughter and tears, two contrasting worlds colliding. He talked about his life, lavish parties, yachts, and clubs, filled with glitter and glamour. I listened, not believing my own pulse could quicken so for someone so unattainable. But then, as I watched him ease into affection, a hint of darkness crept back. I clutched my chest, disoriented. The past clung to me. Could I actually allow this? Would I fit in? Would I even survive long enough to find out? Then he leaned closer, that silence between us heavy. "I'm serious about adopting you," he whispered. There it was, the change in my anatomy, in my life. A billionaire ready to rewrite my story. But danger circled, thoughts swirled. Why him? Why now? My life-threatening illness loomed over all of this. It seemed too good to be true. Even as hope flickered amidst my shadows, another wave of dread crashed over me. Wait, how did he know? I felt my heart pounding, a deafening drum against the stillness. Here was a man holding an outstretched hand. But here was also the haunting question. What did he want in return? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days that followed that fateful encounter blurred in a mixture of disbelief and fragile hope. I found myself waking up in the sprawling mansion that Theo Kensington called home, each morning feeling like a dream that could slip through my fingers. I would sit at the edge of the grand bed, staring at the vastness of my new reality, wondering if I could truly belong in a world painted with opulence. Theo had been nothing but kind. He brought me into his life with open arms, taking me to unexpected Plaza Gallery opening, a charity dinner. I marveled at the fluttering elegance surrounding me. Both moments were surreal. I donned dresses I could never have imagined wearing, adorned with jewels I once thought only existed in fairy tales. Yet, every moment felt like a careful thread holding my past and present together. But there was a heavier burden in my chest, the reminder of the illness that shadows me. Each day, I felt the tight grip of anxiety. As the calendar pages turned, the whispers of inevitable prognosis loomed larger than ever. The best doctors had warned me that each ticking minute came with the promise of shadows creeping closer on the outside. Theo was patient, gentle, almost too good to be true. But the knot in my stomach twisted tighter every time I caught his gaze lingering on me, searching for something more than mere companionship. Could he see the cracks I tried tirelessly to cover? One evening, after a luminous sunset painted the sky, I sat on the balcony alone, wrapping my arms around my knees. I was desperate for solitude. The cacophony of laughter and music from the party inside felt suffocating. I inhaled the crisp air, letting it fill my lungs with a fleeting sense of peace. Date night? Outside whispers infiltrated my thoughts, teasing me with voices that dared to whisper, "Are you going to let him fall for you knowing your fate?" Then there was a sharp sound of glass tinking against marble. I glanced over, to find Theo leaning against the door frame, eyeing me. He wore an expression that seemed to carry 1,000 unsaid words. "Mind if I join you?" He stepped outside, closing the door behind him, blocking the reverberating music. I nodded, though unease rippled through me. He shifted closer, his presence warming the chill of the evening air. "It's beautiful out here. Like a painting I want to remember." I chuckled softly, but my heart felt heavy. "Everything seems beautiful from the right angle," I muttered, wondering if he could see the fracture lines in me. "The right angle?" He tilted his head, curiosity dancing in his eyes. "Tell me about your angle." I hesitated. How could I encapsulate the tangled mess within me? The reality of brokenness, the darkness waiting in the wings. But something in his gaze urged me on, and the words spilled out like ink from a fountain pen. "I'm afraid," I admitted quietly. "Afraid that this," I gestured to the opulent surroundings, "is just a temporary escape. That one day I will have to face my illness alone." Theo's expression softened. He reached out, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "You're not alone. I mean it. No matter what happens, I'm here." In that moment, a warmth unfurled in my chest, a flicker of hope before the question surfaced. "But why? What do you see in me?" "Maybe I see the light even when you can't," he replied earnestly. "I want to be there for you in every way, even if suddenly." A fateful chime interrupted him. A message flashed across my phone screen, shattering the vulnerability of our moment. "Your test results are ready." My breath caught like a stone in my throat. The weight of uncertainty crashed over me. "Do you need to go?" Theo asked, concern knitting his brows. I could barely manage a nod. My phone slipped from my grasp, clattering on the floor. Before I could react, Theo bent down to pick it up, and as he handed it back, his eyes briefly darted to the screen. I froze as I saw a flash of something, a name I recognized, a name tied to secrets I couldn't share yet. "That doctor," he murmured, brows furrowing further, something uncertain glimmering in those piercing eyes. I grabbed my phone back, heart racing. It's nothing." But as I looked at him, I realized the truth I feared was creeping to the surface. I need to know. But will you still look at me the same way if the worst happens?" Something shifted in the air between us, a perilous fragility. I had not only shared my fear, I had exposed a part of my soul to its very marrow. In that moment, the room hung heavy with unspoken truths, and as I grappled with varying emotions, I knew one thing. Neither of us could walk away unscathed. As Theo opened his mouth to respond, the ringing of my phone intensified. Dread pooled deep within me, echoing the words I hadn't yet voiced. Would the verdict pull me further into the lighter, strip away the fragile dreams I had dared to dream? But before he could answer, the night held its breath, waiting patiently to fill the quiet with inevitability. The world outside was suddenly brighter, yet all I felt was the weight of impending darkness. The flash of the message still lingered on my phone, a stark reminder of the truth waiting just beyond my grasp. As I stood frozen, fear rooting me in place, Theo's concerned gaze burned through the haze. "Are you okay?" His voice was a gentle pull, a lifeline in a storm of uncertainty and swirling emotions. I stuttered, my heart racing as I weighed the decision ahead of me. "I need to take this." The words felt hollow, an instinct to slip away from the moment that had turned fragile and fraught with consequence. He stepped back, his expression shifting to something more guarded. "Of course. I'll be right inside." With those words, he faded into the shadow of the door, leaving me staring after him as the looming truth tethered me. That I took a deep breath, fingers trembling as I swiped on the screen, hoping against hope for reassuring words. But the message, once processed, shattered my already fragile sense of control. The doctor's name loomed. Dr. Hartwell, a specialist I had hoped was merely a precaution. But in the quick silence, surrounded by echoes of laughter that seemed worlds away, I understood the chilling reality. The results were a gateway into a future I dreaded. That I wanted to drop the phone into the abyss of my past, erase every ounce of vulnerability it revealed. Instead, I forced myself to tap on the message, my heart hammering in my chest as a surge of anxiety washed over me. Please call us, it read. It's urgent. I pressed my palm to my mouth, stifling the whimper that threatened to break free. I could envision what that urgency meant. It meant my body had betrayed me once again, just as it had done for years. But with each passing second, I could feel a flicker of momentum, deep-rooted survival instincts clawing at the edges of my consciousness. No, this was not how it was supposed to end. Not tonight, especially not here, with Theo within arm's reach. But as I stood there, uncertainty suffocating me, another soft buzz vibrated in my hand. Another message. Who could it be? My heart sank even further, dread mingling with hope. I unlocked the screen again, squinting at the unexpected name. Lucy, my sister. The one person who knew the depths of my struggle and whose own pain mirrored mine. Call me, it read, followed by a string of SOS emojis that twisted sorrow and frantic love into a single thread. I hesitated for no more than a breath and then hit call. A knock on the balcony door interrupted me. Theo stood there again, concern etched across his features, but I couldn't meet his gaze, half in fear of what I might reveal and half desperate to shield him from my turmoil. Is everything all right? He asked, his voice threading through the tension like a soothing balm. I pressed the phone to my ear. It's Lucy. Hey, I need to talk to you. Her voice was shaky, crackling over the line. Are you all right? I murmured, instinctively feeling the link between us tighten. I don't know if I am. She whispered, tears evident even through the distance. I need you. Please tell me you're okay. Lucy, I started, fighting the tremor in my voice. I'm trying to be fine, but I trailed off, glancing furtively at Theo, who stood just a breath away, the shadows casting doubt on the closeness we had just shared. There's something I need to tell you. She pressed through the phone, her urgency filling the space between us. Mom, she's taken a turn for the worse. The doctors don't know how much time she has left. Each word hit me like rain on parched land, dredging up guilt for my secret struggles while painting vivid strokes of helplessness. I gasped, and Theo stepped closer, his brows drawn tight with concern. He'll be right there, I said, speaking for both of us, though I had no idea how to reconcile this new burden with the one already crushing my heart. I'm coming home now. The call ended before I could decide what to feel. I dropped my gaze, the reality shifting like quicksand beneath me. What is it? Theo asked, his voice harsh with concern, familiar yet frighteningly distant. My mother. As I trailed off. Naming the inevitable felt surreal. She might not have long left. The air thickened as Theo processed my words, understanding forming a delicate balance between compassion and fear. I'm so sorry, he murmured, a shared grief hanging in the air, a moment so raw that I felt my heart wrestling against hope and despair. They'll go visit her, I whispered, gaining tiny fragments of courage from within. But I can't leave you hanging on my without thinking. He reached for my hand, his warmth enveloping mine. You're not hanging on anything, not anymore. We'll tackle this together, whatever it is. My breath hitched, emotions colliding in waves. How could someone so golden stand beside me in the midst of such darkness? Yet the gravity of unseen futures loomed, whispering bitter truths into my ear, a reminder that warmth could also be fleeting. As we stood clinging to that precious moment, time slipped, breathless. Wait, I said, pulling back, an apprehension rising. What if before I could voice the unthinkable, I heard a familiar voice calling from within the mansion, startling us both? Theo, the investors are here. And he pulled away, but the connection remained palpable, the reality we danced around rippling across the silence. I felt the promise of tension twisting in the air, a hollowed breath where hope mingled with despair. I turned, gaze drawn upwards, fighting the urge to flee into the safety of the shadows. But instead, I faced Theo, searching for the elusive answers that might anchor us both. And in that defining moment, the world fractured, a specter of impending loss threatening to tear apart the bonds we had just begun to forge. What if I told him that slipping away was my only safety net? Would he step back into the light without me? The ringing in my ears intensified as the echoes of Theo's voice faded into a background hum. My heart raced, caught between the gravity of my mother's condition and the warmth of Theo's earlier touch, as if my body was trying desperately to reconcile two opposing truths. I turned, searching for an escape in the intricate patterns of the floor, my thoughts spiraling around decisions I hadn't prepared to make. "Hey, I'll come with you," Theo said, breaking through my reverie. His earnest gaze bore a mix of determination and vulnerability that made my heart swell. But something deep inside me recoiled at the thought of dragging him into my chaos. "No, you don't have to. It's not about having to," he interrupted, his voice firm yet gentle. "It's about wanting to be there for you. I can't just let you go through this alone." As his words settled around us, panic fluttered in my chest. The vulnerability I had worked so hard to shield from him began to seep through the cracks. I didn't want him to witness the raw pain I could feel already pooling in the corners of my heart for the mother I'd struggled to connect with for years. Yet, the way he spoke held an echo of hope, a sliver of kindness that urged me to reconsider. The ringing of my phone startled me again, vibrating insistently in my palm. I jumped, revealing the lingering tension that held me hostage to my thoughts. I glanced down to see I had missed another call, this one from Dr. Hartwell. The urge to bury my head in the sand surged. My reality felt unbearably heavy as the sweet pressure of Theos' support battled against the fear of confronting what could come next. "Just take a deep breath," Theo said quietly, noticing my uneasiness. "Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together." I wanted to believe him. I did. But as I peered into the depths of his bright gaze, I was painfully aware that this wasn't our singular burden to bear. It was larger than both of us. "Theo, you don't understand," but he shook his head, closing the gap between us. "No, you don't understand. I want to be here completely. Let me help you." As I absorbed his words, another shivering truth unraveled in my mind. His desire to stand beside me felt like an anchor, while my fears were ready to sweep me under. I hesitated, my mouth opening and closing as I fought the tidal wave of emotions crashing within. "Okay," I finally managed, feeling the weight of surrender release just a fraction. "Okay, let's go. Just give me a moment." Of course. He stepped back out of my personal space, yet I felt his presence solid and unwavering, a lifeline I had been searching for. But I took a moment to collect myself, a pocket of silence before the storm. As I turned to head toward the door, I felt a fleeting sense of clarity. Perhaps facing my mother wasn't just about grief, it could also be about healing. The thought tethered a pulse of hope to my heart. Maybe, in this unraveling, I could find the courage to mend what had been broken. But as we stepped outside into the night, a chilling wind swept over us, the darkness gnawing at my resolve like a relentless beast. I pulled my coat tighter around myself, trying to brush off the sensation. "Do you think you could take me there?" I asked quietly, the vulnerability of the request swimming beneath conscious thoughts. "Absolutely," he replied, his voice steady. As he opened the car door for me, the ride was filled with silence, but it was not an empty kind. Each passing streetlight illuminated fleeting moments, echoes of laughter shared in happier times, fleeting and fragile little treasures carved within the canvas of my memories. But as the reality of our destination loomed closer, the fear curled around my chest like barbed wire, squeezing tighter and tighter with every turn. "What if she doesn't recognize me?" I whispered, the words falling out like shattered glass. Theo reached over, wrapping a comforting hand around mine. "Then you show her the love you have for her right now. There's no expiration on that." I nodded, but felt the fissure of uncertainty widening. Love was complicated and, somehow, opposing emotions felt, woven tightly within it. As we arrived at the familiar yet hauntingly foreign entrance of the hospital, I watched the flickering lights casting shadows on the pavement, a mirror of my own wavering resolve. "It's going to be okay," he assured, his confidence brimming like a warming sun. "You've got this." Taking a deep breath, I squeezed his hand before releasing it. "He'll be right back," I promised, though the words felt more like an oath to myself. I stepped inside, entering a world steeped in antiseptic and hushed whispers. The nurse at the desk offered me a kind smile as I approached, warmth flaring briefly as I introduced myself. However, nothing could prepare me for the moment I pushed open the door to my mother's room. The sight of her frail form lay in stark contrast to the fierce woman I once knew. Heartache clawed at my insides, an anguished and familiar pang that echoed the unspoken conflicts of our past. Just as I took a tentative step forward, the sudden, jarring sound of a crash erupted behind me, pulling me into the fray of chaos. Startled, I turned to find Theo standing frozen, the door he had just entered swinging ominously behind him. Tension crackled in the air as everyone in the corridor turned, eyes wide with uncertainty. The nurse bolted to Theo, who seemed transfixed by something beyond my view, shadows creeping along his features. What just happened? I breathed, heart racing as my anxiety spiraled. He stumbled over his words, gripping the door frame, and in that moment, I saw a flicker of fear in his eyes, and the hesitation shook me to my core. As the air thickened, a voice broke through from the crowd behind me, shifting the atmosphere entirely. "Someone call security." I stumbled back, confusion swirling into dread. What is happening? Before I could process what was unfolding, I felt Theo's hand close around my wrist. "We need to go now?" The world began to pulse around me as panic set in. I could feel my heart beat at a deafening crescendo. But just as I turned to flee, my mother stirred, eyes flaring open unexpectedly, revealing a gaze that felt simultaneously foreign and achingly familiar, yet an unfathomable change flickered within. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the chaos, heartbeats pounding fearfully in my chest. "Don't leave me." The words stung, tearing through the fog of uncertainties until a new truth unfurled, shrouded in mystery. The inevitable past and the uncertain present collided. Hope wrestled with despair, but something else, something inexplicable began to push through, whispering of realizations yet to come. Little did I know, this moment would not only alter my relationship with my mother, but it would also redefine the bonds that I had yet to discover with Theo, unearthing a truth that I never anticipated. As my mother's faint pleat echoed in the sterile room, time seemed to stretch and contract like a heartbeat caught in suspended animation. The chaos outside dissipated, replaced by the weight of her vulnerability, drenching the affair in an intricate tapestry of fear, love, and irrepressible regret. I gazed into her sunken eyes, trying to find remnants of the spirited woman who had raised me. In that split second, my past filled the air like dense smoke. Memories swirling around us, birthday parties tinged with laughter, the profound silence of our estrangement, and echoes of unsaid words that clung to my throat. My breath hitched, and I took a tentative step closer, the adrenaline coursing through my veins, battling against the very real threat of despair lurking in the corners of the room. "Mom," I finally said, the words spilling out like a fragile offering. "I'm here." Somehow, those two simple words broke through the fortifications of my heart. Somewhere in her foggy mind, I hoped she recognized the love embedded in each syllable. Her gaze softened, flickering between memories and shadows, and I could almost see her grasping at threads of clarity. "Don't leave me," she repeated, and each utterance felt like a declaration, the yearning echoing as a plea that reverberated through my fragile existence. I could sense Theo hovering by the doorway, a well-meaning guardian in a world that felt suddenly perilous. His presence was solid yet slight, as if he, too, were caught in the undertow of the moment. Somewhere deep in my heart, I felt an unexpected surge of gratitude for his unwavering support, knowing he would not allow me to drown beneath the tidal wave of my emotions. Before I could respond, the once hushed whispers swelled into a cacophony, the chaos erupting again as another nurse rushed past us with urgency written across her features. Panic unfurled within me. Had I stepped into? The realization of her condition, something I had tried to ignore, came crashing down. This was more than just fear. It was the fractured remnants of my unresolved relationship with her. "Please, I need," my mother's voice cracked, pulling me to focus back on her. It was a cry for connection, a stark, vivid reminder of our inherent bond. I took a deep breath, willing myself to be strong, to be enough for both of us. "Mom, I want leave," I promised, stepping closer still, half anticipating the warmth that once enveloped our relationship. I reached for her hand, tentatively grasping the frail fingers that had once eased my fears and whispered assurances yet were now tremors of uncertainty. Just then, Theo took a courageous step forward. "Ma'am, I'm Theo, and I can help you. Your daughter is here to support you," he offered gently, his voice laced with an odd mixture of authority and compassion. In an unexpected twist, his presence seemed to provide an anchor for both of us, lending strength where I had thought there was none. The urging commotion outside grew louder, the tension redefining the weight of our interaction. I looked from my mother to Theo, realizing that this tangled web of relationships was evolving, shifting with every fragile moment. Suddenly, the door swung open. A tall figure stepped in, their demeanor all business, yet something wary lingered beneath the professional facade. "Is everything all right here?" the doctor inquired, gaze landing on my mother, who was fighting to hold on to her consciousness. I stepped in front of the doctor instinctively, my instinct to protect surging forth. "Yes, she is my mother. I need to understand what's happening," I asserted, my voice trembling with newfound determination. "Your mother is unresponsive at times, but we're doing everything we can," the doctor replied carefully, eyes skimming across the room as if sensing the brewing storm of emotions. "We need to conduct some tests, but her condition is serious. We're here for her," Theo interjected, his tone unwavering. "Whatever she needs." The doctor nodded, appreciative yet distressed, and quickly moved to check my mother's vitals. As I stood there, observing Theo's steadfast stance beside me, an unwavering pulse of strength flowed between us. But the shadow of uncertainty lingered, fundamentally tethered to my uncertainty regarding my own emotional resilience. The doctor instructed us to wait outside while they attended to my mother, those words landing like stones in my chest. I caught a glimpse of Theos' reassuring smile, and it anchored me to a reality I couldn't flee. As we stepped into the adjacent corridor, the air felt colder, more sterile, a stark contrast to the warmth I had fought for just moments earlier. "I'm so scared, Theo," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper, eyes stinging with the thread of unshed tears. My walls had begun to crumble, and with each step, it felt increasingly impossible to keep my emotions contained. He turned, framing my face within his hands, earnest and unwavering. "You're not alone. Just keep going. Focus on your mom. Focus on what you need to say. They'll be right here every step of the way." The grounding effect of his words steadied my trembling heart, and as we stood on that precipice of uncertainty, a flicker of defiance ignited within me. Maybe there was still a chance to connect, perhaps healing lurked somewhere hidden, waiting for us in the labyrinth of pain and joy that molded our stories. But as the minutes dragged into an agonizing stretch, a shadow fell across my thoughts, prompting unease to slither back into my mind. Should I have let the doctor in on my mother's condition earlier? Was this just the beginning of a storm, or had I unwittingly signed us up for a battle we weren't prepared for? Just then, a figure emerged from the lane outside the hospital. The crisp air carried the sound of hurried footsteps, and my heart twisted as recognition flickered to life. The menacing shape glided closer, the certainty of a past I thought I had buried digging its claws into my heart. "Celia," the voice shouted before I could catch sight of the owner. A twisted mix of excitement and anxiety charged the air, and the world around me teetered on the edge of chaos once again. As the figure approached, everything I had known seemed ready to unravel. My heart raced, the impending confrontation weaving nostrils of clarity through me, as confusion and misbelief enveloped like an all-consuming fog. A face from the past was stepping right back into my life, one that I had never anticipated yet had haunted my dreams. In that instant, I realized the complexity of my unfixable situation had just grown unbearable. The echo of the familiar voice sent shockwaves through my core. My thoughts raced, colliding with memories of bitter nights when my world had crumbled and twisted under the weight of choices made. I stepped back instinctively, every muscle in my body tensing, heart clamoring against my ribcage. "Celia." The voice again, this time closer. I could now catch a glimpse of the face that had once been a haunting specter threading its way through the fabric of my past, the sleek, polished features of the man I used to call Dad, or at least what a father figure should be. It had been years since I had seen him, years since the betrayal had fractured our family and my illusion of safety. "Why are you here?" I managed to stutter, my voice caught between disbelief and vulnerability. The corridor felt narrower, the walls closing in, reminding me painfully of my childhood home where love was often entangled in shadows. "I heard about your mother," he said, the urgency in his tone rippling through the air. "I came as soon as I could." His eyes searched mine, but I saw no trace of the remorse I had so desperately wanted. "What do you want?" The question slipped out, bitterness curling around the words like a vine. Theos' hand rested on my back, a private anchor in the storm, but the warmth barely touched the chill racing through my veins. He hesitated, casting a quick glance down the corridor, where whispers flitted about like wayward notes from a forgotten song. I want to help. She needs someone who cares for her. I shook my head, a negative instinct rather than a rational thought. You don't get to decide that. Not after everything. A tidal wave of anger mixed with deep-seated hurt threatened to engulf me. The memories collided violently, the silence after he left, the vacant chair at family dinners, everything fractured and exposed. Celia, please, he pressed, desperation seeping into the cracks of his composure. I know I made mistakes, but I can be there for you both. I have resources. Help. Help. I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound that felt foreign escaping my lips. You think throwing money at our problems can fix years of pain? You stood by while our lives burned to the ground. Celia. Theos' voice cut through my fury, steady and reassuring. The grounding force humbled me, reminding me that I was not fighting alone. Are you sure you want to do this? He asked, concern etched in his features. I tore my gaze away from Theo, the tension in the air spiraling around us like a cyclone. No, I admitted, withdrawing into the thought, knowing I needed space. Maybe I didn't want to confront the man who had cherished wealth over family. The confrontation felt unfair. I was battling demons of my own, scrambling to manage my mother's illness, while facing a tidal wave of feelings resurrected by his arrival. The seconds stretched ridiculously far, the weight of the moment turning palpable. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor, the doctor returning with a solemn expression that snuffed the air of anger. My heart sank, the uncertain flutter since the start of this ordeal twisting deeper. Miss, she began, her words clipped, wrapping around me like a vice. We need to talk. The world stilled, and my heart plummeted, anticipatory dread painting the edges of my consciousness. About my mother? I whispered, and I was aware of how my voice trembled, the fragile thread still tethering me to everything I feared. Your mother's condition has worsened, she continued, and gray clouds gathered over the fluorescent lights, swallowing the intricate patterns of hope I had carefully woven since arriving. We have to prepare you for what might happen next. Around me, everything faded into a dull haze. I felt Theo's grip tighten, but my mind was elsewhere, swarmed by memories of laughter and warmth encased in the sour timeline of our unraveling reality. My past collided head-on with the present, and the realization that I might lose the only other person I loved surged through me like a wildfire. I breathed, almost a prayer. We still have time. I need to fix everything. First, the doctor's eyes softened, but her professional demeanor held strong. I understand your need for hope, but we need to be realistic. It's crucial that you prepare emotionally. And just then, I felt my father's presence loomed like a shadow, intruding into the breach I had just worked to fortify. Celia, you're not alone, he said softly, stepping closer without my invitation. You can count on me. But could I? It felt disorienting to grapple with this newfound complexity in a moment already suffused with tension. My mind raced, but with it came another flurry of confusion. A spark ignited. The contrast between the man who had walked away and the stranger standing before me now felt incandescent, almost reminding me that growth could sometimes wear surprisingly different faces. That I suddenly caught Theo's encouraging gaze, a reminder that light could occasionally penetrate the darkest corners of my heart. Yet, the gravity of the doctor's words clung like smoke, a nagging reminder that with each passing second, time slipped through my fingers. Looking at my father, connections flickered like dying embers, the desire for resolution battling against the fear that any closeness would inevitably mire me deeper into the muck that once suffocated our love. Just as I began to understand that healing could begin on unexpected pathways, the suffocating tension twisted tighter, sparking an impossible choice. One I had evaded for so long, if sensing my internal conflict, the doctor uttered, "You should say your goodbyes, just in case." In that instant, dread washed through me, unraveling the fragile defenses I had erected. I understood now the urgency they saw in my mother's condition, and an overwhelming wave of panic crashed over me. Now, here I stood, torn between my past and my hope, faced with an unimaginable decision. The fear of loss was looming, and at that very moment, I realized there was no escaping the truth that my family's storm was just beginning to churn. The sterile walls of the hospital felt as though they were closing in on me. I turned away from the doctor, each word twisting deeper into my gut, leaving me hollow. I could almost hear my heart splintering with the weight of the imminent farewell. The notion of goodbyes dangled over us like a guillotine, and what should have been a tender moment became poisoned by fear and regret. "I need a moment," I muttered, recoiling from the crushing reality. Theo stepped forward to squeeze my shoulder gently, but I felt a torrent of emotion surge up, choking me. "No, not now," I burst out, pushing through the sliding door into the dimly lit waiting area, seeking an escape. Outside the sterile shell of the hospital room, the world moved on unaware of the tempest brewing inside me. My breath came in sharp bursts, and I leaned against the cool concrete wall, trembling. The shadows of doubt and sorrow encircled me, creeping under my skin, tightening their grip. At that moment, I felt alone. "I understand you're hurting," came a voice from a few feet away. It was the nurse from earlier, her presence a flicker of warmth that briefly cast out the shadows. She approached slowly, her eyes softening, and I couldn't help but take a breath that wafted with slight relief. "My mother, she might not," I trailed off, a familiar heaviness constricting my throat. "I know it's hard. She's not gone yet, and right now, it's all about being present," she replied, her voice steady and soothing, a lighthouse in my sea of despair. "Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means cherishing the love that you have." I nodded, though I felt as if the suggestion bounced off me like raindrops on a hard surface. How could I cherish something when my heart was splintered into pieces, and every memory felt like a knife twisting in my gut? "What if I can't?" I whispered, vulnerability spilling out, uninvited yet desperate for release. "It'll be here when you're ready," she declared softly, her kindness an unexpected balm. For a brief moment, I let the warmth wash over me, grounding me like a tether to hope. Perhaps, in the depths of my despair, there was a flicker of kindness that could guide me through what felt insurmountable days. I pushed myself upright, drawing deeply from the well of compassion outside my pain. The memories of laughter floated to the surface, the warmth of our family wrapped around me, a quilt of love that I so desperately wished to reconnect with. Just then, I spotted Theo standing at the entrance of the corridor, his silhouette a comforting beacon. He shot me a look that shielded his concern, pride whispering encouragement in the depths of his eyes. I closed my eyes for a brief moment, taking a deep breath to steady myself before returning to face what awaited. As I stepped back into the hospital room, the air felt thick, heavy with unsaid words and crumbling dreams. My father stood near my mother's bed, pretending to examine the foredrip, although it was evident he was readying himself for a confrontation of a different sort. "Celia," he began when he caught sight of me, but my heart was racing, the weight of emotions welling up like an impending storm. "Don't," I interrupted, my voice low yet firm. "You shouldn't be here. You've made it clear your help isn't needed." I could feel Theos' presence beside me, his hand resting on the small of my back, an unyielding support. "I want to make things right," he insisted, earnestness lacing his tone. "With you and with your mother," but the sincerity of his words created an echo of doubt in my heart. I could only think of the years we had lost, the tears shed in silence. "And what do you think it can accomplish? You want to mend a broken bridge with glue? You can't just salvage broken promises with your presence now. You can't fix what you've already dismantled." "Celia, I'm trying," he started, but I caught the flicker of fear in his gaze, a glimmer of uncertainty that reminded me our battle was not just mine. "I don't need your attempts at fixing or your resources," I hurled back, carrying the weight of my pain, but also the burden of something else seen unexpected. Yearning to understand, to heal if not to forgive. All I need is the time to say goodbye if necessary, and to hold on if it's possible. I'm not ready for anything else. The room silenced, and my heart pounded in my ears. My mother lay still, her breath shallow yet steady, the mere act of life becoming an all-consuming battle amidst the chaos around her. I wanted to reach for her, to feel her warmth one last time, or perhaps grasp the enormity of our shared struggles. "I just want her to know I'm here." My voice wavered despite my efforts to sound resolute. Theo stepped closer, a quiet strength I couldn't ignore, and in that moment of intimacy, I clung to him, letting the tears spill freely. I turned back to my father, whose posture had relaxed, surprise flickering across his features as I finally allowed vulnerability to wash over Maya, stark acknowledgement of everything untold. "Can you let me do this, please?" I whispered, as though I were pleading with the universe itself. He exhaled deeply, each breath heavy with unspoken connections and the haunting knowledge of the chasm that existed between us. "If that is what you need, I will wait outside," he agreed, voice softening. And as he stepped away, it freed me to step toward my mother, the air thickening again with unsaid words. I grasped her hand, the warmth fading yet still tethered with love, and in that moment, I felt the dissonance of a life lived so far undone. But just as a glimmer of hope sparked within me, blurring the lines of past pain and future promises, the beeping of the monitor changed its rhythm, alarming us all into fragile silence. The tension which had briefly dissipated returned, thrumming louder than ever. "No," I gasped, as confusion and fear twisted into a single breaking point, an invisible barrier dissolving before my eyes. The doctor rushed in, her expression shifting as she took control of the scene. I could barely grasp what was happening. The world fell away, the specter of loss looming perilously close yet again. Everything felt too volatile, too uncertain, and in that charged moment, even as a flicker of unexpected possibilities danced just out of reach, I felt like I was teetering on the edge of an abyss, one that threatened to swallow me whole. And as the monitor beeped wildly, fear spiraled through me again. I had fought so hard against the tidal wave of resentment and pain, only to find myself ensnared once more in the storm's fray. A shocking revelation emerged through the chaos. Would this be the last moment I would ever spend with my mother, or a beginning that could reshape everything I thought I knew? The surge of chaos enveloped the room as the doctor and the nurses moved with urgent precision, their commands threading through the air like a lifeline. My heart raced erratically, caught between the frantic beeping of the monitor and the desperate hope of my mother's survival. I stood frozen, my hand trapped in hers, unwilling to relinquish the last tangible tether I had to her warmth. "Stay with us," the doctor urged, her voice urgent yet calm, a soothing contrast to the storm inside me. I couldn't tear my gaze away from my mother's pallid face. Every breath she struggled to take seemed to echo the tremors of my own heart, caught between fear and the longing for miracles to happen. "Please, Mom. You have to fight. We need you," I whispered, the words escaping so easily now, laden with the weight of everything left unsaid. Theo stood by my side, his presence a solid reminder that I wasn't alone, but the isolation of grief loomed larger than the comforting embrace of his arm. Each tick of the monitor grew louder, and every passing second morphed into a lifetime. Suddenly, the nurse's voice shifted into a reassuring tone. "We're going to increase her medication to stabilize her, but we need you to remain calm." Calm? How could I do that when my world felt like it was being extracted piece by piece? The very thought of losing my mother left me gasping for air, choking on despair. With every fiber of my being, I wanted to hold on to hope, but it lay fragile, slipping through my fingers just like the glimmering memories of our happier days. In the frantic atmosphere, I heard an echo of my father's voice linger outside the door, barely audible, but present nonetheless. "Is she okay?" he called out, desperation lacing his tone. For a fleeting second, I felt the stirrings of anger surge within me. How could he seek answers from the other side of the glass when he should be here alongside us? I should have said things differently. He murmured audibly, a hint of regret coloring his words. I wanted to reach out and yell, to tell him how his absence painted our lives with strokes of confusion and pain. Instead, I squeezed my mother's hand tighter, feeling the warmth waning against mine. Theo sensed my turmoil and leaned closer, whispering, "Your mother is a fighter. She needs to feel you here." His voice was anchored, full of faith, even as doubt tugged at my heart. Perhaps, just perhaps, in our shared vulnerability, we could pull not only her through this moment, but ourselves as well. Moments tripped over one another, my mind oscillating from fleeting memories of her laughter and medical jargon swirling in the busy air. It all felt monumental and minuscule at the same time. And through it all, I could feel my own pain morphing not quite into acceptance but rather into a strange, sort of tentative understanding. A shift was upon me, a whisper telltale in its insistence that there was still love to be found in the wreckage of what had been as the noise around us receded temporarily. I leaned closer to my mother, cupping her face with my palm, willing life back into her frail body. "I love you, Mom," I choked out, each word heavy with meaning as I traced her cheek with trembling fingers. I wish we had more time. What I would give to relive those mundane moments with you dog-eared pages of worn novels. Laughter dancing across the kitchen, please fight for them, for us. Don't leave me hanging on these fraying threads of memory. With my pleas echoing in the silence of that dim-lit room, her eyelids fluttered as if she could sense my desperate wish to extract every ounce of strength she possessed. Hope and despair collided within my chest as I waited, breaths synchronized, for something to shift. Then, as if spun from magic, her fingers twitched slightly. I blinked, my heart racing. Was that just my imagination? Was I yearning for a flicker of recognition from the woman who used to bring light to my days? But before I could grasp at that small glimmer of hope, the beeping settled into a steady rhythm. The room stilled momentarily, and my mother's body relaxed, no longer fighting against the machine, as though surrendering to something ungraspable. The doctor turned and glanced at me, a glimmer of something in her eyes I could not decipher. "Celia, we were stabilizing her. There's hope." Hope. The word spun around me like a drug, lighting up the dark stretches of my grief. Yet, my heart remained heavy, caught between longing and fear. Could I dare to believe we could still have time? Could we patch the frayed edges of our family left exposed? As I pondered the implications, my father's silhouette appeared at the threshold, his face a mixture of concern and trepidation. "Is she all right?" he asked again, stepping tentatively into the room. A fleeting moment passed, and our gazes collided unsteady, uncertain. "See, she's still fighting," I murmured, the wavering tone of my voice carrying a mix of solace and resentment. Could I forgive him for standing back? Could he accept the pain had caused? Just then, the lights flickered as a power surge gripped the building, the noise enveloping us in an odd hush. My heart plummeted, and I glanced back at the doctors, searching for reassurance, only to see their faces echo my rising panic. And then, in the midst of chaos, an unexpected sound pierced through the silence that cascaded around USA's soft, melodic beeping that wasn't connected to the monitoring equipment. My heart stopped for a split second, the revelation settling like a stone. A phone that I could have sworn I'd left mine on the chair outside. "That's my phone," I gasped, looking urgently toward the door, where the abandoned device inexplicably began to ring. It was a number I didn't recognize, but in this moment, dread coiled around my senses as the answer loomed within reach, a destiny juxtaposed with my mother's tenuous state. "Please, answer it," Theo urged, urging me forward as reality split itself at the seams. As I hesitated, a taste of something profound lingered vulnerably in the air, a moment that could hold answers to our swirling chaos or plunge us deeper into the unknown. Not knowing what awaited me on the other end, I steeled myself, reaching for the phone, a cacophony of fear and hope gripping my heart. Would this call hold the key to salvation or another chapter of heartbreak? With every second echoing through my veins, one thing became palpably clear. This moment stood at a precipice, and life was about to change once more. I stood frozen, the phone vibrating against my palm, the weight of it heavy and suffocating. Before I could gather my breath, the urgent beeping in the room returned like a tidal wave crashing back against the fragile shore of our hope. I exchanged a quick glance with Theo, whose steady gaze urged me onward. He had shared in the depths of my despair, and now he seemed to embody the strength I so desperately lacked. With a quick intake of breath, I pressed the answer button and raised the phone to my ear. A voice, unfamiliar yet strangely resonant, poured through the receiver. "Celia? It's me, Veronica, Veronica." The name rang through my mind like an echo of a distant memory. I had known her once, an old friend from high school, vibrant and ambitious, now a successful lawyer. But why was she calling me now? The urgency in her voice felt dissonant with the moment, like a tune trying to play through a broken gramophone. "Is everything okay?" "I heard about your mother," she said, her concern palpable even over the line. "I was calling because I might have some help for you." My heart fluttered, hope fluttering like a bird in a cage. "Help? What do you mean?" I managed, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice that I am not sure how to say this, but I know someone who has been following your mother's case. They might be able to provide financial support for your medical bills, or even assist in finding a top specialist who could help her, she said, the words spilling forth with an urgency that spurred both curiosity and caution in my heart. Veronica, I began, but a sudden crash of emotion welled up within me. Here I was, grappling with the fragility of life and a million other swirling thoughts. And now this flicker of possibility appeared, shrouded in uncertainty. I want to help. Celia, she interrupted gently, and her voice softened. I realize now how much I neglected our friendship, but let's be honest, the past is behind us. You need to take care of your mother, and I can help make that happen. I closed my eyes, fighting off tears. I don't know if I can accept that, I whispered, the weight of pride and vulnerability battling fiercely within me. Sometimes letting others in is the bravest thing you can do, she replied, a steady warmth filtering through her words. I'm not asking you to forget the past. I'm asking you to let yourself dream of a future. Before I could respond, the room's atmosphere shifted dramatically, stark confrontation with the reality of my mother's situation that demanded my attention like a stone sinking to the bottom of a river. I glanced at her, lying there, a flicker of rebellion against the void that threatened to consume her. Hold on, Celia, Veronica insisted. Let me connect you to Dr. Mendez. He's one of the best oncologists. He could review your mother's case right away. Okay, I whispered, the word trembling as it escaped my lips. Hope surfaced amidst the fear, battling the dread still coiling in the corners of my heart. Great. They'll send you the details. I'm so sorry for everything. I should have reached out sooner, she said, her voice steady but filled with real regret. Before I could collect myself enough to respond, the phone call ended, leaving me abruptly aware of the distance that still lay between what I wanted to believe and the anguish still tethered to my reality. The prospect of help stirred a mix of instinctive distrust, rooted in years of disappointment. Just then, as if summoned by my thoughts, my father stepped fully into the room, his presence a clumsy but palpable reminder of wounds unhealed. Who was that? He asked. An edge of concern flashed through his eyes. It was Veronica, I stated, my voice betraying me just enough to reveal the turmoil churning inside. She might help us find a specialist. Really? He asked, skepticism carving lines into his forehead. I wasn't expecting you to discuss anything with her. The irony of the moment struck like lightning, igniting a chasm of tangled emotions. What do you want me to say? That I'm not invoking hope because it's your past to bear? I exclaimed, a rush of defiance and sadness pouring out like a wave breaking free. Celia, that's not, he began, but my mother's monitor pulsed at a blaring noise, seemingly amplifying the weight of our unspoken grievances. Just stop. I interrupted, feeling the energy swell like an impending storm. This isn't about you. My mother needs us, and I need you to be present. More than anything else, no argument there, he replied, vulnerability revealing itself through the gaps in his hardened demeanor. Perhaps I have been absent for far too long. But I'm trying to my father faltered. The walls built up around my heart began to tremble, bricks sliding downwards as an old yearning resurfaced said to be truly seen and heard, to find common ground amid the tempest of everything unsaid. Then stay, I whispered, feeling the weight of the moment settle between us. But before we could reach the tentative threads of understanding, chaos erupted anew. A loud crash followed by a wail from a nearby room surged through the walls, forcing the tension between us to shatter. An eerie sense of foreboding skittered through my heart as I squinted toward the door. And just when I thought my capacity for shock had been exhausted, a nurse rushed past us, urgency gripping her features. We need to stabilize room 204. There's been a complication. Time seemed to slow as the words reverberated, the air growing dense with dread, a haunting reminder that in the hospital, even the most fragile threads of hope could unravel in an instant. I felt as though gravity shifted beneath my feet, and suddenly I understood the fragile nature of our lives, teetering upon the precipice of fate that in that moment, surrounded by turmoil where love collided with loss. A chilling thought struck hard, a visceral truth whispered through the chaos that perhaps the comfort of the familiar was but an illusion. My heart raced with unanswered questions, the familiar brush of fear intertwining with an undeniable sense of impending change, and I clung to my mother's hand tighter than ever as the walls of our lives threatened to collapse into the unspeakable unknown. In the seconds that followed that heart-stopping moment, chaos enveloped the room like a dark shadow. With draped anxiety, I gripped my mother's hand tighter. Time slipped away, ushered by the swift movements of the medical team, each with their frantic urgency, as if trying to stem a tide that refused to be held back. The wave of uncertainty loomed closer, eroding the delicate space where hope had briefly taken root. Thea's presence beside me became a pillar of strength amidst the storm, his hand now resting firmly on my back, anchoring me to the present even as my thoughts spiraled into what could happen next. "Well, face this together," he murmured, his voice a calm amidst the pandemonium. Those words, simple yet profound, flirted with the edges of my trepidation, a reminder that light could still thrive in darkness. Then I heard it, a soft whimpering sound, almost like a plea escaping my mother's lips, breaking through the cacophony of alarms and hurried voices. It twisted my heart, an echo of everything unresolved, and instinctively I leaned over her, my forehead resting gently against her own. "Please, Mom, you have to hold on. I'm here. We're all here," I breathed, desperate for any sign that she could hear me, that there was still a flicker of the vibrant woman within. Her eyelids fluttered, just for an instant, a fleeting connection, as if she fought against the encroaching shadows. I held my breath, my heart beating in tandem with the rapid beeps of the monitors, both steady and unnerving. The doctors worked unrelentingly as I clung to memories of our shared laughter, the moments of joy wrapped in warmth, the tender reminder of the bond we shared, no matter how fractured it had become. Suddenly, the door crashed open with a rush, and my father stumbled in, sincerity radiating from him even in the fraught atmosphere. "What's happening?" he gasped, his eyes darting around the room. But rather than anger or resentment, the look on his face bore a tenderness I hadn't seen in years, a father desperate to be part of his child's life, fighting for a connection rekindled just as swiftly as it had been extinguished. Together, I managed to gasp through the fog of panic. "Be here with us." What would come next felt like an offering, a fragile, yet profound leap into the unknown, that he stepped forward hesitantly, the distance between us shifting inches closer, and somehow it felt like a reconnection, first tentative touches of a tether forged from years of longing and regret. "I won't let you go through this alone," he declared, his voice steady against the backdrop of chaos. "You don't have to." My heart swelled, but it was tempered with caution. Fear and hope danced within me, weaving a tapestry of our tangled past laced with the realization that facing the storm would require the strength of all of us. In that moment, an unexpected truth revealed itself, a longing for reconciliation, not just for our family, but for myself. It was time to heal, to allow the woven threads of love to stitch us back together, even amidst shadows lurking behind. "Mom, can you hear us?" I whispered, but the confession of my heart spilled out like a prayer. "We're here. You're not alone." And then something shifted. A warmth spread through the air, like a gentle breeze wafting through the confinement of illness. In the middle of chaos, beneath the weight of unbridled fear, her chest rose slightly, a breath deeper than before, a whisper of life reaffirmed. "Celia," she breathed, her voice tentative as if she were testing the weight of it. The world around me blurred, and the physician's hands paused, suspended in time. Each heartbeat echoed like thunder, rippling through the fabric of our unresolved love, the story intertwining us inseparable. Though the moment hung precariously, somehow, amidst everything, I felt alive, tethered by the hope I had finally embraced. "Take a breath. We're all here. We're going to fight together," I began, conviction filling the space. Just then, she opened her eyes, meeting mine with a tenderness that signified recognition. "Celia," she whispered again, those simple words weighing heavy with everything left unsaid. But they were not just words, they were spurting life into the chasms of our shared history, a bridge that could mend what had been broken. In that swirling mix of turmoil and heartache, I realized what we had was not just a mere fight for survival, but a fight for our unity. Love surged within the heart of our tangled past, and amid the commotion surrounding us, a war had transformed into healing instead. Just as delicate threads began to stitch together, an unexpected sound erupted through the room, a vibrant ringtone echoing off the walls. "What?" I murmured, glancing down to see the familiar face on the screen. The very name sent a jolt of realization through me. Veronica again. And she was calling because the doctor had come through, the need for specialists swinging in our favor, igniting a flicker of hope amidst the shadows. My fears twisted with the promise of possibility, but even then, I braced myself at the chance. Would it be fruitful? Or would this be yet another door to disappointment? I pressed the answer button, heart racing. "Veronica?" "Celia." Her voice radiated warmth through the line, jubilant but focused. "Listen, Dr. Mendez is available to examine your mother's case now. He's agreed to come by." Stunned silence blanketed me, the gravity of those words unfurling within my chest. "Now?" "Yes, as soon as possible." My eyes flickered to my mother, taking in the slow rhythm of her breaths as I sought the courage to hold this fragile thread in my grasp. The cards of fate had shifted, and the tides had turned. Perhaps the battle was far from over, but it undeniably felt like a chance to rise from the ashes. I glanced at Theo and my father, who both offered encouragement, their eyes like stars alight against the black canvas of uncertainty. Together, we would navigate whatever was next, fortified by a newly strengthened bond. Proud in our shared heartaches. "Do you think she'll make it?" I whispered instinctively, vulnerability swirling amid disbelief. "There are always possibilities, Celia. With a good team, we can make a difference," Veronica affirmed, stirring the flicker of hope within me. I took a deep breath, my heart thrumming steadily. "Then let's do it." As I hung up the phone, I looked at my mother again and found hope blooming in her eyes, and the world around us shifted in response. In that moment, amid the chaos and medical urgency, I resolved that we would fight together for her survival, for our family, and for the moments still to come. The love coursing through us swelled, shimmering edges kindling into a light that ignited every corner of our brokenness, and no matter the outcome, we were here, united, resilient, and inextricably bound by our shared journey, the journey of a million moments yet to unfold. "I am grateful," I whispered, the words escaping my lips like a prayer, my gaze shifting between the fragile woman I loved and the men alongside meth hearts who had weathered the storm in their own way. For this chance, for all of this. And as the door creaked open to let the doctor in, laden with life's potential and choices waiting to emerge, one powerful thought wove through me, finally illuminating the depths of love that had rooted itself in my heart. Even in darkness, family forged an unbreakable bond, a love that knows no bounds, still yearning, still fighting. Despite it all, we were alive. That resonant truth hung in the air like ethereal magic, and as I held my breath, stitching threads of fragile hope around me, I understood deeply that no matter what came next, our love could light the way. Through every tear, every struggle, we would face it together. "We will get through this," I promised, the flicker of uncertain but radiant optimism whispering against the horizon of promise ahead. In life, against all odds, love perseveres, illuminating the path before us, revealing the beauty in every new beginning. And as I turned to Theo and my father, a family reborn, and felt their trust grounding me against the storm ahead, I let out a simple vow that felt destined, echoing through every chamber of the heart. No matter what happens, I'll always choose love.